You are listening to the Still Moving podcast. This week we have friend, creative director, poet, musician, creative consultant Joshua Luke Smith, who is joining us to have a chat about the constructs that hold up a freelance life. We go into topics such as self-discipline, routine, and rest, and we really think that you're going to enjoy this one. So grab yourself a coffee, sit back, and enjoy.
What? I'm recording. What is going on?
Are you recording your audio though?
Yeah, it's recording.
I've recorded my audio.
What kind of podcast is this? What's happening? What are you eating? What are you drinking there, Dom? It looks like a Bear Grylls kind of drink.
I've been in the jungle for 5 minutes and I'm drinking my own urine.
All right, lads, should we jump in?
Let's go.
How are you feeling, Josh?
I'm feeling great. I've just had a nice walk in the country. Had a wonderful Costa coffee down by the river. Life is wonderful. Yeah.
Excellent.
Which Costa?
The one near you.
Oh, so you're down by me, are you? You didn't say
Yeah.
hello.
Yeah. Well, you know, in the neighborhood. Didn't want to intrude.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Excellent. Anyway,
Let's go.
is everyone recording?
Yeah, we're recording.
Lovely.
I'm recording.
Well, welcome back, everyone, to the experience that is the Still Moving podcast. We'd like to hope you're having a good week. We've got a very special guest with us this week. Dom, why don't you introduce him?
Oh, I thought you were talking about me. Oh, okay.
Nope.
This guest. Wow. How do you introduce this guest? Well, his name's Joshua Luke Smith. Yeah. And he's an activist. He's a poet. He's a songwriter. He's a director.
He's a philosopher of men.
Yeah. So, mate, Josh, thank you for joining us, bro. What a pleasure it is for us to have you on our podcast. He does podcasts as well, actually. You're good at this. You're good at this, aren't you?
What a pleasure. What a pleasure to be on the podcast that everyone is talking about. And I'm not saying that as a joke. I'm saying since you guys have started this, I have seen numerous Instagram stories about this podcast. I have enjoyed this podcast. I'm genuinely honored to be here. Thank you for having me.
Wow.
The reshares you've seen online is quite evidently just Dom and I sharing about the podcast. But I mean, that's very kind of you said, right? Everyone's talking about it like me and Dom.
Everyone on this podcast, I mean, literally everyone who's on this podcast has been talking about this podcast.
It's funny, though, because you haven't shared it. So,
Actually, I think I have right at the beginning. But
Which
to close friends and
episode was
family.
your favourite, bro?
to close friends and family.
to the family WhatsApp.
Yeah, favorite episode, intro. I thought the second episode that you did on comparison was brilliant. I mean, I feel like I you might say the same about my podcast. I don't know how many of the last 20 episodes you both have listened to, but I mean, I won't linger there, you know, for the sake of an awkward answer. But I also get the impression. I also get the impression that we kind of live in the podcast of each other's lives. So, you know.
Wow. That's pretty deep.
That is just one example of the sort of poetry Josh is able to it's just off the cusp, isn't it, mate?
A sonnet by Joshua Luke Smith. I'm in your podcast.
Is that a sonnet?
Anyway. Josh, mate, it's good to see you, man. For people that don't have any grid for who you are, bro, why don't you just give a little introduction to yourself, a little bit about your life?
Yes,
bro.
Well, for the people, which is most people that don't know anything about me, I'm married. I'm a father as of this year, and those are two of the most defining and important things about me. I'm Eden's dad, which is the honor of my life, and we live in Bath, and I write music and poems, and I enjoy spending my life working with people and making things. That's kind of what I do. I'm one of those people that many of you listening might relate to. When you're on the plane or you're traveling somewhere, you kind of have the opportunity when someone asks you, what do you do, to come up with a different answer. You can kind of reshape it. And I do that quite a lot. I don't find it's easy to define what I do. And I really enjoy that because I do a few different things. Born in London, grew up in the Himalayas in northern Pakistan, moved to Canada where I met my wife, now living in Bath, and just enjoying my life so much. Genuinely, I really enjoy my life.
That's awesome, bro.
Flex.
Yeah. Do you know, sometimes you got to say it, though. Sometimes you just have to say, I am really enjoying my life right now. It's just
that's good.
It's really good. Yeah, it's a good thing.
It's funny that that one would feel that it is an awkward thing to say, isn't it? Like one would feel quite awkward to be like, "Oh, how are you doing?" I'm doing great. I'm really enjoying my life.
Yeah, yeah.
People just don't say that because that's like, that's a bit like, oh, right, cool. What you're meant to say is, fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'm loving this tuna fish, ciabatta. But don't ask me about my life. Like I'm indifferent about that, you know.
Very true.
Love that. Well, mate, welcome to the podcast, bro. We Dom and I were having a chat about who we wanted to kind of bring on, our first guest. So to the 50 listeners that we do have, this is a bit of a moment.
It's dropped to 30 actually. Yeah, it's dropped to 30.
Is it actually?
Yeah, no, but they're 30 authentic listeners.
Well, that's fantastic. So in a couple of weeks, we'll have them at 5. So, I mean, at least we've still got some traction at this point.
With this one, with Josh's name on it, we're going back up to 100,
Look,
baby.
Once I share this with close friends and family, you should get a trickle more, actually.
This is really why we brought you on, bro, because we need some more listeners.
103 followers, yeah.
No, but, mate, we thought we'd bring you on because folks listening, obviously this is a photography and film podcast, but you're one of both of our closest friends, and I think Dom and I have both similarly been inspired by your approach to life and your self-discipline of kind of how you live. And I think it's something on this podcast we wanted to chat about more, was kind of just like lifestyle, rhythm, living, health. And mate, you're someone who's really exampled that, I think, to both of us as friends. So we kind of wanted to kind of just have a chat about that. And also because you've creative directed a few of the shoots that we've done together, we thought there'd be some funny stories that you might like to disclose to the podcast listeners. So any dirt would be welcome because everyone needs a good laugh in 2021. So that would be funny.
True. That's true.
But
I appreciate that. Thank you, bro.
No, of course, man. Dom, do you want to kick off with some thoughts or some questions?
Yeah. Question number 1. Where'd you get off, mate? Yeah. No. First question. I don't have a question, bro. We've had so many conversations like between us, and actually probably between Toby as well, like within our community of just like rhythms. What we've had so many conversations. I feel like most of our conversations is me going, I really struggle to wake up early in the morning, and then you basically repeat it, like coming back at me with like absolute fire, and I'm like, I'm gonna get up early tomorrow. Like this is good stuff. I think it'd be really interesting just to basically touch on like how you as a creative being freelance, same as Toby and I, there's no structure to the day unless you put it in. What kind of keeps you like focused? What's structure and rhythms like? Do you tend to like give yourself in the day? Just kind of anything on that. Like I'd just love to hear you share what you've shared to us in the past, you know?
Yeah, I appreciate it. I think you learn so much more about how you want to live by talking about it with other people. So whatever you've heard from me or I've given it you, I've got as much in return, and just being in an environment where people are having these conversations. Because what a conversation to have, how do we live? As if it isn't something that you instinctively do, but you have an opportunity to actually define how do you live. And the conversation around rhythms and routine is approached from so many different angles. So there's a lot of conversation about it. And probably the most predominant one is in the environment of productivity. So if you don't know if people listening to this podcast will follow Matt Devella. Do you guys watch him on YouTube?
Yeah, I love his videos.
Yeah,
man.
So he'd be an example of someone. I mean, I really appreciate his stuff. This isn't throwing shade at him, but it's he's got incredible hacks around productivity. Live your most productive day. Beyond that, but a lot of the conversation about rhythm and routine that I was introduced to was onto be productive. That wasn't what really captured my attention. Not because there isn't a lot to be talked about within that, but my approach of shaping my day came from this idea, this question of who do I end up as? So it is inevitable that we are all going to be someone in 50 years. If you're still alive, you're someone, and we are going to be confronted with that person. And it's this very simple thought that Joshua in his 20s shapes Joshua in his 80s. And that idea really confronted me. And I thought, wow, like this matters. How I choose to live out, 6 a.m. to 10 p.m. today is actually this thread that goes all the way 60 years into the future to the man I'm there. I am then. So that's what like instigated for me. And I mean, we can get into I'm happy to share anything with you guys, but we can get into the nuts and bolts of how I do my day. It's never going to be copy and paste, as I've learned with other people that I'm inspired by. You've got to find your own rhythm, and you've got to find your starting point. You've got to start defining why you want to shape your day and your lifestyle. So when I think about that question, who do I want to be when I'm 80? It begins with the first thing I spoke about. It begins with my wife, and it begins with my children. It begins with the man that I'm offering them. So my rhythms are defined by practices that are to do with the soul rather than the craft or the work, I like to begin my day by confronting the things in me that I would have a tendency to run from.
Yes.
Because that's the stuff that's going to really evolve me. That's going to give me the sense that I'm going to give my wife a gift in who I am in 50 years, So that really excites me. And the people listening might get that of like, oh, snap. I'm today on Tuesday, the whatever it is of January, I'm shaping who I am in 50 years. Because if you just make it about today, you'll have every reason not to do some of the hardest stuff. But if you're recognizing this is playing into a much bigger picture, then as a starting point, that motivates me. That really like gets me interested.
Good. So good,
Yeah.
man.
That's amazing. It's kind of, I think you said it a long while back, like discipline is choosing to be the man that you want to become.
Yeah.
Or
You can
denying the man that
reverse it. Yeah. So you can reverse it to discipline. Discipline will cost you one thing. It will cost you who you don't want to be.
Yes.
So sometimes the best thing to do that I do, like I wrote that line out when I was trying to find a phrase that would motivate me, and it was like, why don't I want to do it? Because there's a cost. So what does it cost? Who I don't want to be. So describe to me. You have to do it right now, but describe to me who you don't want to be. I don't want to be selfish. I don't want to be lazy. I don't want to be jealous. Okay, so your disciplines are going to be things that go in the face of those attributes.
So good. It's amazing.
Love that, man. I think, like, Dom, you probably agree with this, mate, but I feel like when you step into a freelance lifestyle and you choose the path of creating your own path, if I may say that, as cliche as it sounds, I think, I was just saying to Dom, I think this is a really interesting subject because the actual figuring out of your day-to-day, I found it took me about 2.5 years to become comfortable with having my own kind of say on whatever I did. And I think it took me a good 2.5 years to really try and figure out what the balance was for me. Because, some days I'd go to a coffee shop and I'd work there for a whole day. It's the millennial dream. And do like 8 till 5. And, people just come into the coffee shop. You'd say hi. You'd kind of do a little bit of work here and there. And then the next day I'd be really focused in the office. And the next day I would go on a shoot. Or like the next day, it's just so interchangeable. But the whole thing of like, self-accountability and, I think everyone has a very different approach to their work life. Like there's a guy I worked with in Copenhagen a few years ago, and he said he works best from 6 p.m. to 2 a.m. So he wakes up at 12 p.m. He has a slow brunch, goes for a walk, reads his book, does a few emails about 4 p.m. And then he gets into it. He goes into his little studio, he turns all the lights off, and he works from 6 till 2. And he loves it. Beautiful. It's just it's how he does his life.
Do you know what though? That's not brunch if you're eating after 12, is it? That's more like dinner.
First meal of the day.
Or
Fantastic.
Dutch.
Dutch. Can you say it in a Danish accent? That sounds even better. Don't do that. Okay.
You just lost 3 listeners. Carry on.
Yeah.
Our Dutch fan base is gone.
But yeah, bro, have you got anything to kind of like say into that? Sort of like your journey of, the freelance life. I know you've already shared, something so really great there, but just, I don't know, a bit more like ideas about that.
For sure, yeah. So really, there's the starting point. Like, why be intentional? Why bring in even this conversation? So begin there, whether it's productivity, whether it's self growth, and then I think with being a freelancer, with being someone, and we've got to remember, and everyone listening, how privileged that we are as being. If you're freelance right now, listening to this, and you're part-time freelance, so you got 2 days of the week that is you're being paid doing what you're doing. You are in a very small percentage of people across this whole planet that have the luxury of defining your own time. It's
Yes.
incredible.
Yes.
So already what you got to recognize is you're in this kind of small corner of the pie chart where, unlike most people, the time you have is yours. So don't, forgive yourself for feeling, at a bit of a loss of what to do with it. Because you weren't raised in a culture, in a society that taught you to have your own time. You were raised in a culture that said, educate yourself, then work for someone else. So now you're at this paradigm shift. You're like, I get to spend my time how I want to do it. For me, there's this phrase by this Chinese philosopher Confucius who says, "Wherever you go, there you are." Right? And being a freelancer, I so relate to what you said, Toby. I would try to find the aesthetic and the environment to bring out the best work in me. And I probably spent a good number of years doing that until I realized wherever I go, there I am. It's like, so I've got to deal with the elements of my freelance career that trip me up, that will be there wherever I am. I don't know if I was telling you about this, Dom, the other day. I was telling someone, there's this phrase called eat the frog. And this has been probably one of the most helpful principles of my freelance career. Every day, eat the frog. Begin by doing the thing you want to do least. Start the day by doing the worst thing on your to-do list. Eat the frog, right? Or the analogy, the productivity analogy, which is great, is you have the jar, you have big stones, you have pebbles, and you have sand, right? Put the big stones in first. Put in the things that cost the most, that take the most amount of time. Do it first. Because I realized whether I'm in a beautiful Scandinavian coffee shop or whether I'm in a basement apartment with no, natural light, I've still got to do the work. And wherever I am, it's best that I do the work I want to do least first, right? So let's make it really practical.
Yes.
During this first week of 2021, I've recognized as a musician, I'm still not going to be on tour. I'm still not going to get the paychecks from tours, from speaking events, and from festivals. So, but hey, as everybody knows, the rent and the bill doesn't change. So I said to my wife, you know what? I'm going to take on a couple design jobs because I've got a design background. So I took on a website and a brand build, which isn't something I do regularly, but I've taken it on, and I got a really frustrating email from the client, which basically said to me, "You've totally misread our agreement and you think I'm doing a lot more work for you than I've agreed to do. You guys know what that's like." So on my to-do list, and I'll show you, for everyone watching, I can show you what my notes look like. Every day looks the same. Every day of my diary looks like this. I'll break it down for you real quick. I have every hour of the day mapped out here. I have a box here that's called reflections of the day that I'm writing during the day, and this is gratitude at the end of the day. The first thing on my to-do list was call the client and have that conversation, and this is a super, super simple, thing, but it's like, put it at the beginning of your day, the thing you don't want to do, and get it done so you can maximize the space and potential for your creative output. That's what I find creatives tripping up with the most. You haven't sent that invoice, you haven't sent that email, you haven't had that phone call, and it's in the back of your mind. And guess what? It's in everything you're making, because you never make anything that doesn't include the entire you. So you guys were talking about comparison and jealousy. If you don't deal with that stuff, it's in the photos you take. That might sound really metaphorical because no one's going to notice it, but guess what? You will. You will look at that photo of that skyline in Tokyo, and you will remember the bitterness that you felt that morning. Or you will be doing that website for the client, feeling the gripe in your stomach because you haven't dealt with the email that the other client has sent you saying you're 5 days past due on a delivery. So deal with that first, so the work you make throughout the rest of the day is free from that inner turmoil.
Yes,
that's
so
good, man. I had that exact situation. Email's been in the inbox for nearly a week now, and I'm like, I will deal with it. I will when when it feels good. But you're so right, just saying that, just like it has. Yeah, I haven't maybe necessarily consciously realized it until you just said that. But I'm like, that has actually been in the back every time. I'm kind of just it's there. You know, it's kind of on the screen.
Totally.
I love what you said then about you see it in all the work, like you'll see it in your work. It's working with an artist, and she'd made a couple of music videos that she wasn't a big fan of. So when she asked me to do some work with her, the approach I took was like, we need to make sure that everything that you do in the whole process you feel really comfortable with, because the videos were great. And the projects were great, but it was just, you could just really tell that it was the feeling that went into it. And so it was, I made a conscious effort to be like, everything we do, I want you to know, like, I want you to feel like you have you're doing it exactly how you want to do it, and all this sort of stuff, because you're so right. At the end of the day, especially for a client, they're going to look back at it and be like, what did I feel when I did that project? And that's going to actually define so much of how they feel about the project, regardless of if someone on the other side of the world says that looks awesome. They're still sat there going, I don't like it, and I don't like it because of the way it went. Right?
Yeah,
it's so good,
huge.
So true.
Which is partly why these rhythms are so important, because I think to myself sometimes, what am I doing? What am I doing today that I'll be doing whether I'm in LA or whether I'm in Vijayawada in India? Like, what are the same things I'm doing every day to keep my inner world in order, so that what I do that day is defined by what I've set out to do in the morning. For me, it's the morning. I love what you said there. I think it was you, Toby, about the guy in Copenhagen. And it's so true. Like, there's some great books out there of like the rhythms and routines of like creative people over the centuries. And so many are like working through the night and do it whenever it works for you, but do it. Have rituals. Rituals are so important. Rituals are so important. I'm just going to go back to my notebook again. I wasn't planning on doing this, but just the reason I write out every hour of the day is because every single hour matters. Every single hour of your day matters. And when you are freelance, tell me if you've experienced this. Sometimes you start a day and it's this whole big abyss. It's just this thing that you have to like walk into. Do you ever feel that? Like there is, I don't even know where to start. No one's telling me when to break for lunch. No one's telling me like to have a cup of tea. No one's telling me to send that email then. It's just this big space. So I plot out the hours because the hours matter, and the rituals that we have as creatives, they sanctify the moments that we live, you know? Winston Churchill had the same breakfast every single day. He smoked the same cigars. He had a bath every morning. He was leading a nation to a war, and he was eating a full English breakfast in the morning, a scotch at 4 p.m., you know, like 10 cigars during the day. I'm not saying it's the healthiest thing, but in the midst of what would have been the most stressful experience, he was living and he was appreciating his life, you know? And I'm inspired by these stories, as unhealthy as that might sound. I'm inspired by people that you have an account for your day. Your day, that day actually mattered. This is a real simple one. Fitness, right? If you were to say, I'm going to do 50 press-ups every day for the rest of my life, and there is nowhere on earth that I could be that would stop me from doing those press-ups. If you say that as a creative, you're doing a very simple physical act that has huge creative and productivity ramifications. This is why. If you do 50 press-ups every single day, you are stating the fact that there isn't an internal force that is more powerful than your cognitive decision to do press-ups. So, I'm tired. Oh, it's cold. Boom. 50 press-ups. You have won the moment. You basically communicated to your body. You've released serotonin. Your body feels active. Your blood's pumping, and you've said to yourself for the rest of the day, there is nothing that will come across my desk, come across my day that I don't have the willpower to overcome. It's these simple things, man. So
cool.
They make for a really rich and interesting life.
There's actually there's actually a book I read that says exactly that statement of like, as soon as you snooze your alarm in the morning, and I'm saying this if I don't snooze my alarm, I 100% do. But as soon as you snooze your alarm in the morning, you've lost the first battle of the day, right? Getting up out of bed, and it's like, so you're on the back foot. Whereas like, if you get up as soon as it's like that's the hardest thing in the moment. You're on the front foot of your day. I love that.
Yeah, it's so good, man. I feel like the what you were saying, Josh, about, you know, some days you feel like you're just facing the abyss, like just a huge open space. I feel like that emotion is exactly what I'm referring to in like the first 2.5 years of being a freelancer. Because I was like, it's going to be easy. Like I'll fit into this within 2 weeks. And I just felt pretty lost for 2 years. Yeah. And I was just like, it took friends around me like yourself and like Dom and other buddies here in Bath to really like help me shape what my kind of day-to-day looked like. I mean, now like I feel much more in a better position because if I have something that I need to attend to, like an email that I don't want to answer, I can't actually do anything else unless it's addressed. Like I feel like it's something within me personally of conflict, which I can't move on until I like
you got to resolve it.
Like this week I've had like a contract and a law thing that I needed to figure out, and we, you know, it's the first thing we needed to address this week because, you know, I can't carry on with my week until we've figured out the details. But mate, I love what you said. I feel like what you're touching on is like the constructs that surround that life that you're doing as the actual job as a freelancer, like you as a poet and as a creative director. You know, it's the construct around doing those creative acts that actually bring success to the work that you're doing. And that's what I've always felt super inspired by, seeing how the people that have really done something with their lives, how they live around the acts that they are doing, that people see, like the creativity. I love that, dude. I think that's so good.
Good way of putting it.
Yeah. Josh, there's like one super practical thing I'd love if you're up for sharing it. You don't have to share it if you don't want to. We'll just cut it out. But I love when you've Toby, don't choke, mate.
I'm good.
I've always been inspired when you've shared like the real practical like your routine in the morning, because I think it's quite unique actually. Like I don't I think I haven't really spoken to any person that has got such a structured way of waking up and basically getting out of bed. I'd love for you to share it if you're up for sharing it.
Yeah, for sure. I will. I'm gonna do some more kind of in-depth, spend some more time on this conversation in the months to come. So this is a little plug for, I'm developing I'm going to call it a retreat called Swimming with Salmon, that will come out in the next few months. And it's this whole idea of like, you know, salmon spend their entire existence swimming upstream through the claws of bears, hitting their bodies against the rocks just to make it to the riverbed to give birth and then die, right? And it's this whole principle that everything you want is upstream. There's nothing good downstream. Everything's upstream, you know? And so I start my day upstream. And what that means is my alarm goes off every day at 5 a.m. And I wake up.
I didn't know that. You're a nutter.
So it goes off at 5 a.m. And it's funny because I've been doing this for a long time, and now I'm a father. It's really kicked into play even more. What I realized was I didn't want to wake up and start the day rushing what for me is the richest part of the day. And disclaim to everyone listening, I don't really believe in the sort of the morning, evening person as a limitation. We're definitely prone in different ways, but I don't think that's a restriction for the rest of your life. For me, discipline is born of joy. If it's something that brings you joy, it might not be easy, but you can get there and you can enjoy it. So for me, I love the morning. I love experiencing the beginning of the day. And I literally mean the dawn. I love experiencing it. I feel alive. And I think everyone does. I think everyone does. Like, you know, even those like airport drives as a kid where the sun's coming up and you go in somewhere and you're there at the cusp of the beginning of the day. And so I thought, well, why does it have to be that a one-off? So wake up at 5 in the morning. I'm gonna walk you through it. I wake up at 5 in the morning. I go to the toilet and I splash my face with water. Then I go downstairs and I pour a glass of water I drink the water. The reason I do that is because your body hasn't drunk anything, for like 8 hours. You wouldn't go through the day without drinking water. So you just do it. You just drink water and it just kicks things in. And then I go straight outside, and I'm talking about January 2021, straight outside. The air is cold. And I do a 15 to 20 minute HIIT workout. And that will start with just some jumping jacks. And it will just include, movements that really get the blood pumping, releases serotonin, the happy hormone. It gets your blood going around, and after about 20 minutes, it's around 5:30, and my body is pumped. Like, it's not easy, and I'm not saying that there aren't mornings where I'm just kind of pacing around, rubbing my eyes, but it happens. It gets done. There's half an hour, right? Check this out. There's half an hour. You're gonna spend it one way or another. It's 5 to 5:30 or 8 to 8:30 is gonna pass. It's gonna happen. You could do it scrolling on your phone. You could do it snoozing, or you could do it doing burpees, but it is gonna pass. And after you've done it doing burpees, after you've done it working out, your body is in a posture of gratitude. I go straight from that into a 10-minute meditation. And meditation for me is about stillness. It's about oneness with the divine. It's about returning to the truth below all the truths that we get thrown every day. This is what matters. This is what matters. It's returning to a state of, oneness and belovedness. That's for 10 minutes. And then I do what I call, there's different words for this. I do free writing for 10 minutes. Journaling, you could just call it journaling. It's basically a space of just fleshing out what I feel. And I begin with that question, what do you feel? And for those of you that know the Enneagram, I'm an Enneagram 7, so I'm a head type. So it's good for me to connect with my heart. What do you feel? Sometimes it's tired, hungry. And then after that, I do around 50.
Every morning. Tired, hungry.
Tired, hungry, copy and paste.
Worn out.
Wish I was still in bed, which is what I do feel sometimes. And then it will be like before Eden was born, it would be like an hour of reading, right? And this is the thing, guys. It's about 6:30 in the morning, and you have lived like there is no restrictions on your life. You've literally lived like the richest experience. And you can do this at different times. You can start this at 9 a.m. You can start this when it's just, how you kickstart the day. Now at 6:30, I go into my daughter's room, I pick her up, I bring her into the bed, Kara feeds her. Then at 7, I take her downstairs. I have an hour with Eden, 7 till 8. Then then that's when Kara gets up. Kara comes, gets Eden and works out, and I start my day at 8. So I'll start every day with a cold shower, and that is I just love the cold shower. I used to hate it, but now I love it.
Why do you love it?
Mental.
The cold shower, and I end it with a warm shower. The cold shower goes back to like doing the thing that costs you. It's putting yourself in this way of like, I don't want to do this, but it's kind of like the eating the frog thing. It's like, but I can do this. So something's not controlling me to stop me doing this. And just Google it. The biological ramifications of cold showers is undeniable, from the balancing of like hormones, the curing of depression, the prospering of good blood circulation.
I didn't know. That's really interesting.
It's about 7:30 in the morning, and I start work. And I've like, and look, I'm not saying this in a sort of like, I'm going to one up someone kind of way. Hear me right here, but I'm ready to go. And if you imagine like you're in a conversation with someone that has woken up and rolled out of bed at 8, they're no less a person than you at all. But you're in a different posture. And if we were going to go down the David Goggins, military productivity route, you're ready for the day. Let's just put it that way. You're ready for the day. And so I have been asked, I do a lot of different things, and I have been asked like those kind of questions of like, how do you manage everything? And for me, it's like by 8:30, my soul and my mind and my body are in a good place.
Yes.
I kind of feel like I can take on the world. I'm ready to go. There's loads of mornings it's a struggle. There's loads of mornings it's difficult, but it's a rhythm that I can do anywhere in the world, and it's a rhythm that I know will center my inner world in a really positive way.
Oh man, that's
You're
amazing.
You're just such a good human, aren't you, Mr. Wim Hof?
Wim Hof, man, the Wim Hof method. See, the next stage of that is running the cold bath. Like I'm not like fully there yet.
Ice bath.
And just sitting in the ice bath. Beethoven would sit outside naked in the mornings. He called it his morning bath, where throughout the winter he would wake up, he'd strip off butt naked and just be outside and bathe in the morning.
But see, the
And
thing
just
is,
be like-
I do that here outside my flat complex, and they tell me to go back inside and put my clothes on.
And I got a restraining order.
and I still can't play the piano.
Oh, that's so good, mate. Thank you so much for sharing so in depth and so comprehensively about all of that. It's
I love
very,
it. I
very
think it's so
interesting.
unique. I think like I just feel like I love that people get to hear this, who are listening to this, they get to actually hear that, because for me, I just like, not that I do it, but it just like, I just hope one day I am, because I feel like it puts me into the right gear of like, wow, like being like what you just said then, I'm ready. I feel like there's such a desire to feel like that in the morning.
Mhm.
Like, who doesn't want to feel like they wake up and they're like, no, I am ready for the day. And that's living to the fullest, isn't it? Like, so cool, man. I love it.
Do you know what? And you just start really simple. You just start. You don't need to get up at 5. You don't need to get up at 6. Get up 15 minutes earlier, or even don't get up earlier. Just don't snooze. Just for the simple manifestation of realizing that you're in control. That you're like your desire to sleep isn't more powerful than your desire to wake up. Right. So just start there. Don't do anything else. Just start there. So people listening. And then just begin introducing a few things. Part of the reason I do what I do is because it brings me joy. I said to Kara, my wife, I said, if I'm starting every day reading, 45 minutes of just reading a book, I'm living a good life, even if the rest of the day is difficult. I read today for 45 minutes. So do something that brings you joy,
so
fitness, do 10 press-ups. Just do something just to get your body going,
What did you say about don't skip a day?
Just
I like
don't miss 2 days.
Oh, that's it. Yeah.
So I didn't do this morning. My wife and I got back really late from something, and it was midnight, and I knew Eden's up at 6:30, and I knew my day today. I knew I had this really important podcast that was going to be going on, and wanted to feel ready for that.
What podcast
So I didn't-
is that?
It's not this one.
It's the one after this.
It's Joe Rogan one after this one.
Yeah. And I didn't do it. And the evidence that you're doing something in joy and not out of duty is that you cannot do it. But as a principle, don't miss 2 days. As soon as you miss 2 days, you're like, it's the slippery slope of regression, and it's hard to get back on it.
That's so good, man. It's also to the thing of, within a freelance context, I think discipline is actually essential, because you look at the work of anyone that you actually do admire, and then you go behind the curtain, and there is discipline. Like there is self-discipline and there is self-control, and that's admirable to me. That's inspiring, and it links into this thing of legacy as well, about the life that you leave behind, that your children remember of you. Like when Eden gets asked at 18, "Oh, tell me, like, what was your dad like?" How he got up every morning and he read a book for 45 minutes.
I can tell you. I'll tell you. Just listen. Your dad, he was all right.
He waffled. He went on a little bit.
You talk a lot.
Did you listen to the
talks a lot
podcast?
Yeah. I'll tell you what your dad's like. Listen to episode 5 of the podcast.
What, that podcast that you did 20 years ago, Uncle Dom?
And that man is Barack Obama. Feel old yet? Sorry.
Anyway, it's so
Josh,
funny. Like, if people didn't really know like the humor dynamic between Dom and Josh, half of what Dom says must come across as quite rude.
Sorry. The half of what Josh is fine. Just me. Brilliant.
I wasn't there, my lord.
I wasn't there, my lord. Right. There you go. That's out. All right. I feel like it's so easy in this whole sort of conversation to like sit in the world of like you said, the productivity, like the gurus, where it's like, how do you live the most productive life and da 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 da. But I love what we've all shared as a community about one of the most important rhythms, which is like rest, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because as much as waking up every day at 5 a.m. and kind of, eating the frog and doing all that sort of stuff, there's that element which I'd love for you to share a little bit on, if you would, like just about rest and how big that plays into it.
Yeah,
that's
awesome.
Working from rest, living from rest. Yeah, love to hear you share on that as well, because I think that's such an important part of it.
Yeah, like, probably the thing that I'm most conscious of will be a lifelong journey of formation, like a lifelong journey of pursuing, rather than ever being something that you just get. You know what I'm saying? Like, you don't get a system down and you're like, awesome. But it's one of those things where it reflects the very nature of the world we live in, that our world is based on rhythms, the pull of the tide in and out, the breath, inhale and exhale. We live in a sense of rhythm, and without rest, without the rhythm of rest, we live in an unnatural manner. So there's something at war within ourselves as long as we live without rest as a component of our life. So when we introduce rest, we realign ourselves with the very nature of the world we live in, which might sound a little kooky woo-woo, but it's the truth. It's like, if you're
kooky.
like,
yeah, so
if
good,
your
man.
whole life is get up, get it, hustle, work, it's unnatural.
Half of the
because
YouTube ads.
Yeah, exactly. Because the whole earth around you is based upon seasons. Even the trees aren't in green all year round, right?
Yeah.
Jumps like the sun will set today, so so should you. So when we rest, when we say today I'm not going to do any work, we're realigning ourselves with the most natural like reality of the world we live in, and it's restorative, and it's deeply spiritual. It's something that whether you're listening to this and you would relate to kind of like a spiritual expression or not, it's something that just it benefits your life in such a interesting way. Relationships take time, right? Relationships take time because love is born of intentionality and love is born of commitment. I'm going somewhere with this. If you live in a perpetual state of busyness, you can't breed that which takes time. So when you choose to say something as simple as this Saturday, I'm closing my laptop, you're giving yourself over to these notions and expressions of love and joy and the stuff that actually takes time to nurture. The Hebrew scriptures, the ancient Hebrew scriptures talk about, the Israelites making bricks for Pharaoh, and enduring that time of slave labor, they were introduced with the idea of the Sabbath, the day of rest. And it was, the principle was today you realize you're not a human doing, you're a human being. And as a freelancer, guess what?
Yeah.
No one's gonna tell you to take a day off. No one is gonna say, hey, don't come in on Saturday. No one's gonna say clock off at 6 p.m. Why? Just to go for a walk and have, make a nice meal. So guess what? You're the one that has to do it. So if it's not in there as a principle, as a rhythm, this just goes, it's constant like the waves on a Saturday. There's no rest. There's no work. No one else is going to tell you to
rest
do
on
it.
a Saturday.
No rest. Hustle.
I feel like that's such a misconception, though, isn't it, of like being freelance? Kind of what you were just saying about Toby, about the first few years of like I feel like my understanding, and probably still has been, up until fairly recently, was like, if I'm not working and doing something and people are going ahead of me and I'm behind and actually taking intentional time, and like you just said then, no one tells you to take the time out because it sounds backwards, doesn't it? But actually that rest is so
It's
formative
crucial.
and so important. Yeah, so crucial. You're right, yeah, to the rest of that, the 5 days where you are on,
Yeah, it's so good because I feel like even on going on my phone in the morning, this kind of links into the second podcast we talked about comparison, but I have to be really mindful not to even go onto Instagram because I'll have the immediate feeling will be like I need to catch up before I've even begun my day. So if I begin my day feeling like I've got to catch up before I've even taken the duvet off, then like that's deeply distressing for my internal world to begin into a place of catching up. That affects how I do my first task of the day.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean?
Right. It's like,
Chat, mate.
Josh is like, I remember when you like we were talking about like this concept, like the whole idea of like waking up early and stuff. And you'd be like, "What do you do when you wake up?" And I'd be like, "Oh, I just probably just scroll through Instagram." You go, "Oh, good. Start your day with a bit of comparison. Just start your day." That's nice,
sprinkle a bit of envy. Oh, that's lovely.
It's
yeah.
so true.
But if you said it, I mean, I would say like, okay, 101. Phone is not in your room, like just 101. That's start there, guys. Like everyone, your phone is not allowed in the sanctuary of your rest. It's not allowed. It's just, I meant to say that in the morning routine stuff. It's like I am not allowed to look at my phone until that 8:30 mark. It's just it just cannot happen. It's so invasive, and every time I do it, it's like you guys are talking about. With the comparison, it's like every time I do it, I just open up to the life that I'm not living and then devalue the life that I have. What a sad way to start,
Yes.
Yeah.
It's really stripped. It has stripped me of the best things in my life. Oh, it's so sad. Someone said to me, being a good father is 10% the way you interact with your daughter and 90% not going on your phone.
Wow.
He's just like, just don't go on your phone. So I'm doing this thing now whenever I'm holding Eden that I've never got my phone. I'm really trying it, and it's really tough, but that she'll never see. No, I mean, it's not going to happen like as a sort of fundamental, but I'm really trying to minimize the time that she is being held and I have a phone. So she never feels like she's competing with
that's beautiful.
with something. But I need to learn from that as well, because I don't want to feel like I'm competing with something. Like you just said then, Toby. I don't want to feel like I got to catch up on something that hasn't even happened.
And that's why she loves Uncle Dom a lot.
She
because
does.
I'm just on my phone all the time, and
She knows what she's
on
getting.
it.
She loves
She's on it. She's got an account.
Josh's baby. At Josh's baby on Instagram.
At Josh's baby.
It's a private account. No, it's so good, man, because I feel like especially on I think YouTube has really fed into this kind of culture of work hard, do more, hustle. We joke about it, but like that, I remember watching YouTube videos from 2015 to 2018 and being really inspired by them, and then realizing in 2019 that it just doesn't work.
Yeah,
It's just all this it's just BS, because it gives no construct for a healthy life.
Yeah.
Like, you just burn out. Really quickly.
So true.
Totally.
You just end up hating what you do.
Yeah, totally. It's all those adverts where it's some guy and he's like, it's so cliche, and he's got like a Ferrari, and he's like,
Oh my gosh, yeah.
2 years ago, I was just like you. Okay,
2
so
days,
you've
2 days ago.
Yeah, 2 days ago. So you've just started your advert saying that my life isn't enough.
Yeah.
Well, what about when you're the nurse watching that, who's just got back from a 12-hour shift, serving people, who has made sense of a life where she's never going to get rich, but has given herself over to the benefit of others?
Ooh.
That's
Toxic advertising.
That's a rich
Insulting.
life. Who are you, like, or the millennial life coach? What? You're like 24 years old and you're a life coach? Like, someone said to me, Josh, don't become a sage before your time. We're young men. Like, we don't have it all figured out. We're just getting started. You know what I mean? And we're trying to present ourselves as like these kind of productive, wizards. And it's just like, it's unnatural. It's
so
like, nah.
true.
Live. It's okay to live a simple life where we're just figuring things out. There's a thing that Rob Bell says, who you guys know is a huge inspiration to me. But anytime someone says to him like, "Oh, I'm failing," or "I did so bad at that," his response is, "Oh, it's so interesting because the rest of us, this is our first time doing life. But by the way you're talking, you obviously have done this before, and now you. But for us, we've only lived once. I didn't realize you'd lived twice. Like you've never done this before. Like you have never lived this life before.
Yeah.
You're just getting started. It's okay that you didn't become a millionaire by 40. It's okay that you didn't own a Lamborghini by 35. It's okay that you haven't bought a house yet. You haven't done this before. Like, but are you
So
ending the
good.
day and recounting the hours that you lived as minutes that actually mattered? And
Yeah.
if you are, you're living a special life, my friend.
Yeah. Wow, so good. I love Rob Bell. Love what he shares. That's awesome, bro.
That is funny. That reminds me. I just wanted to say, I made 4 mil last year, and if you also want to be able to make 4 mil in a year, sign up.
Buy my workshop.
Yeah,
How was the tax on that?
tax on that. Well, if you sign up to my other workshop, you'll find out how to not pay the tax on it.
Only $9.99, 99 months for 99 years.
99 years.
That's amazing.
It's a lifelong subscription.
Fantastic.
Go on, Tobes.
I got one more question. I think we got time for one more question.
Yeah, we got to wrap up soon. I feel like Josh needs to share a little anecdote as well.
All right.
I'm sure he's got a lovely anecdote for us.
Got a few.
Fantastic. The power of saying no to stuff. Like, that's a pretty big thing, I think, within the context of freelancing and carving your own path. Something that I'm still working on is, my yes being my yes, my no's being my no. And I think early on in a career, it's really tempting. And I did this. You said yes to everything. And you do some stuff which is just a bit rubbish. And kind of, if you say yes to everything, you kind of evenly spread yourself across a lot of stuff, right? And knowing when to say no, and knowing that it's okay to say a flat no, I think that's pretty tough, especially in Western culture. Like the permission to just say no and to not explain yourself.
Yeah, it's good.
How have you found that, man, in kind of your career so far? And
really difficult. Something I've really struggled with. Really struggled with. It's definitely the first. I left working at Superdry, folding clothes, to go freelance, and began with the mentality that I deserved nothing. So I definitely don't deserve the right to say no, And there's this phrase that might help some people. It might just feel like totally abstract, but it's this isn't your last meal,
Mm-hmm.
So you can say no. Like, this isn't your last meal. And it goes back to what we started with. Josh, who do you want to be at 80 years old? And if saying yes to this, whether it's a speaking gig, whether it's a poetry commission, whether it's a design, whether it's a branding job, whatever it is, how does this sew into the greater sort of infrastructure of your life? Do you need it?
Mm-hmm.
Like, do you need to do this? That really empowers the no when you see it in a bigger picture. But if you take away the principle of, basically, I'm an orphan, I'm Oliver Twist, please sir, could I have some more? If you get rid of that idea about yourself, you'll start treating every job like a gift rather than something you're fighting for, like scraps. And you get to say no. You get to say no. Do you know what? When you say no, you're giving the gift to someone else. You know this as photographers and videographers. Tom, we were talking about it the other day. You say no, and there's some dude 3 years below you hungry for that editing gig that you don't want to do, and he just got it. You know what I'm saying? That's the beauty of our no is someone else's yes, and we get to play a part in that.
We literally had this we had like about almost an hour long conversation about this yesterday. It's like, you just need to hit record on a little pocket recorder or something and just...
That's so good.
That's so good, man.
Josh, thank you, mate. We appreciate you and appreciate sharing all that you've shared. It's
a pleasure. Love it, guys.
It's this kind of stuff behind the curtain, which I feel like doesn't get talked about a lot in a broader context, and I feel like it's so helpful just to open the conversation, just about healthy living and the constructs that hold up a successful career. So appreciate you, mate. Thank you for coming on.
Pleasure.
Do you have an anecdote? Because you've worked with us for many projects, and it's been probably quite funny.
I've got so many, but the one that comes to mind, and this is just an affirmation of how good you guys are together. You've been so successful in what you've done, from the weddings to the corporate stuff to doing a podcast. But I'm gonna let the people know a little secret.
Come on, dish it out.
We were in Iceland.
Oh, no, I knew it. I knew it was gonna be this one.
We were in Iceland on like a 3-day shoot, and I don't know exactly what my role. I was probably creative directing in a sense. I know we had sort of defined the terms. Dom was doing video, Toby was doing photos. It was sort of still and moving, I guess. And it was 3 days of Dom and Toby asking each other passive aggressive questions like, "Is that the frame you want to get? Is that the light you want to use?" But back and forth for 3 days. whilst they were learning to actually communicate with each other on set. And it was a phenomenal project, but for me it's a project that marked a stage of development in our collaborative teamwork of like, instead of asking the question, just say your opinion.
Yeah.
It would be going for these like 4-hour long drive through like the Black Mountains of Iceland with you guys just silent in the car.
It's so embarrassing, but it's so true. It is.
I had to out you guys.
because it's what helps us grow.
God bless
Right?
you and the team that came on that shoot. That must have been quite funny.
Growth, opportunity, tensions.
And on that note, I think we should probably wrap up the podcast. Do you know what? I feel like we could talk for literally for another hour about just ridiculous stories about Dom and I having fallouts. It'd be quite funny.
We can't make people think that that's what happens frequently. We're on good terms.
The people see of
the times.
The people see an undeniable creative duo, and you actually are. It is an absolute privilege that I get to work with you guys. I get to work with, honestly, the best visual, creative designers, communicators in our sphere with you guys, and you are phenomenal. And the fact that you're best friends is just a whole nother level. So it's important that people know that people need to know about Iceland over and over again, because they need to know there's hope for them. So I'll keep telling the story. Don't worry.
I like that. That's good.
That's going to be like the little quote that we make into a graphic. That goes up on the socials.
Tell them about Iceland.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
nice.
brilliant. That's going in the title of the video. Iceland.
Write that down, mate. Write it down.
Josh, thank you, mate. We appreciate you, man. Thanks for coming on.
Pleasure.
Dude,
I got to jump onto the Joe Rogan experience, but yeah, what?
I was gonna say, tell the listeners how they can follow you and see what you're up to.
Yeah, just active on socials. Bebo, MySpace, probably the best places to. It's the usuals. Hit me up. Music is online and YouTube, and I'm most active on Instagram. So at Joshua Luke Smith.
Brilliant.
Hit me up on delivery. I'll come deliver your pizza. It's fantastic.
Just got a part-time job.
All right, bro.
Is the baby crying in Josh's house or Toby's?
The baby is crying in my house, screaming, but my wife is downstairs. Don't worry.
Good.
Kara's actually out right now.
Look, Kara's out, but she knows I'm on a podcast.
The thing is, I didn't want
so
to
does
see
Eden.
I didn't want Eden to see the screen, right? So she had to be downstairs.
Exactly.
Awesome,
Fantastic.
guys.
Cheers,
Love you
bro.
both. Thank you
Bye-bye.
so much.
Pleasure.
We really hope you enjoyed that episode. We certainly love chatting to Josh. You can find him on all social platforms at Joshua Luke Smith. If you want to connect with Dom and myself, at Dominic_During or at _Toby Mitchell on Instagram. If you are listening on Apple iTunes, on the podcast app, we would so appreciate a rating. That would do wonders for the podcast. And yeah, thank you for listening, and we'll see you next time.